Would you rather have a cheaper build, fully outfitted, or a more expensive rifle with just iron sights? Put it in the comments. Let me know what you think. Welcome back, everybody. So today we're going to dive back into our 3-gun budget series. We're going to increase our budget a little bit from the last video. If you didn't see it, it should be floating around somewhere over there. In the last video, we tried 3 guns for $600, and we were pretty successful with a couple different options. So now we're increasing the budget to $1,500, opening up quite a few different routes we can go with this and kind of getting into some of the philosophy behind some of the options I'm going to present to you. Some of this might be a little bit repetitive. Some of it will be new. So stick around. Let's find out what you can get for $1,500. So now that we're working with $1,500 for our budget, we get to look at a couple different options that weren't available to us at the $600 mark. So with this, we're going to first look at our first option, which is generally going to be less expensive guns, but fully kitted. We're talking optics, lights, slings, the whole deal across the board. So can we save a little bit of money maybe on the gun, or maybe we don't get as nice of a gun as we thought, but we are able to get out the door ready to roll. So an example of that being my AR pistol here. So the AR pistol here, this is a Palmetto build. So if we could take something like this Palmetto build that I've kind of rattle canned, and it has a Streamlight handheld light. This is one of their, at the time I bought it, like $40 or $50 lights on the Magpul offset mount that they make, a little piece of Picatinny, Sig Romeo 5, and a Magpul sling. We're not going to count the suppressor in here because that does throw us over budget for what we're trying to do. But you think about a $400 rifle, maybe $500, but we're going to stay around $400. Say about a $400 build kit with, let's call it $100 in extra parts between the sling, the light, and everything else, maybe $150, and then $100 red dot optic from Sig. So you could substitute with that Holosun or some of the entry-level Vortexes, things like that, a basic simple red dot. But something like this, you could get fully outfitted and fit your budget in here for around $700. I would say that you could get a decent build kit for about $400 to $500, and then put the rest of the money into the accessories of making sure you have a couple magazines, making sure maybe a trigger upgrade potentially. We're going to cap our rifle budget with that to try to get a cheaper rifle, more outfitted, for around $700, leaving us $800 to work with. So again, the next 2 guns we're going to get in that first option are really going to depend where your priorities lie. As I said in the last video, this is just going off my personal preferences. I'm not a huge shotgun guy, so I'm probably going to skimp on the shotgun budget a little bit and put more money into my pistol. So for the pistol budget, now that we've got $700 set aside for the rifle, I'm going to focus again on the pistol as well over the shotgun, because I do want a good pistol that I can use as potentially as an EDC, or something I could use home defense, something else like that, something where I'm not carrying the rifle with me all the time. I do want a good, reliable pistol. Personally, I just don't do a lot of shotgun stuff, so I'm going to kind of skimp on that in this first option. So with that, I'm probably going to go with something, again, I'm probably going to go with something like this. This is my Beretta 92X, right? With that $500 mark left for the pistol, I can probably find one of these on the used market. I found this on the used market anyway, for under $400, and I can slap a light on here. For most pistols that we're talking about, you can easily get a $400 pistol, slap a $100 TLR1. I think they're a little bit more than that now. I think they're close to like $150, but you can usually find them on sale, or get some of the Foxtrot 1, which is like $60. So you can get different items, different type of weapons lights, as long as they're good, reputable, and they can fit your holster. So you can get an iron sight set pistol, and you can get that with a light for, we're going to call that around the $500 mark. Now, granted, you might have to go used on some of these. Some of the brands, obviously, you can get cheaper. Some of the older stuff, too, you can get cheaper and do that. But for a lot of these, we're probably going to be looking, if you want something nicer, you're going to have to go to the used market. If not, you're not going to be able to walk right in and get like your standard Glock 19 and a light. So you're either going to get an iron sight pistol that's good, rugged, and reliable, or you can get, with nothing on it, or you can get a decent pistol with a light. So again, this is kind of going the cheaper gun, but with stuff outfitted already. So really, as a carry gun, this is really all you need, unless you are want to get a red dot, in which case, nothing wrong with having a red dot on a firearm. I absolutely think they're a great option for pistols. This, however, one is not cut for it, unless I send it like Lincoln Tactical or something. I can't put a red dot on here. So as a good iron sight pistol, this would be a great option. As a concealed carry, if you do want to put a red dot on there, you could look at some packages where they come with them already mounted. You could look at some of the cheaper options for red dots, like the Holosuns. Those are pretty popular and fairly affordable, and they actually hold up quite well. So you could look for something like that with a red dot mounted pistol, and you could maybe go down to some of the Springfields that are out there, or some of the earlier Smith & Wessons, a used Glock. You could find some of the cheaper CZs. I think the CZ P10Fs and P10Cs were on sale a while back for like $300. So you do some shopping around, just looking around out there. I know there's a bunch of pistols in that ballpark between the $350 to $500 range that are good, rugged, and reliable, and especially some of the smaller compact sizes. You could even get into potentially a SIG 365, something like that would work really well for your carry gun. So again, we're going to say $700 for the rifle, $500 for the pistol. So that's $1,200. So we have $300 left. Again, we're just going to go with a little repetitive here with the shotguns. Super simple. Remington 870. Now, if you can find one that's used, if you can find one for a little bit cheaper than that $300 price, or you can get some of those Turkish shotguns, some of the cheaper shotguns that you guys recommended in the comments of the last video, you might be able to spend a little bit of money, get yourself a side saddle, or at least a sleeve to go over the buttstock to hold a few extra rounds, maybe even a light. You could potentially do that. So option one is, again, kind of a give and take, where we're giving up maybe a higher quality rifle to make sure that we have an outfitted rifle. So it kind of depends on your philosophy of that when it comes to the gun. Do you want something that is set up out the gate, ready to go, and it's got all the bells and whistles on it, or do you want to get just the gun and save up? So with that, we're going to roll into option number two. So option number two is exactly what I just said. It's the option where we're going to get a little bit simpler of a rifle, but we're hoping to upgrade it later. We're planning on just getting the gun itself and then moving into getting something better down the road. So with that, again, similar style of budget, right? With the $700 that we had set up before, that was to get everything out on the rifle. So we are limited in the rifles we can choose. You're really not going to find any AKs, I think, in that price range, already outfitted with red dots and things like that. The ARs is a lot easier. So if we go instead now and we make our budget sitting at around $800 for the rifle, we can now get a entry-level AK. We can now get some decent quality AR-15s. You can even find a few other options that are potentially out there. You just got to do some looking. So, for example, with that, and again, this is trying to figure out where your priorities are. A lot of these, I'm looking for a quality rifle and a decent carry gun. Again, part of that is just my philosophy on it. I don't do a lot of shotgun work. I don't do a lot of things with shotguns to justify the higher price. If I did, I would probably look at outfitting that a little bit differently, and we will look at that in a later option. So, for example, with Stag Arms and a few other companies, you can look for sales, sometimes find higher quality build kits. You can sometimes find these 20-inch AR-15 kits. So this is basically an M16 clone. This is not an A2 because it's got a detached carry handle. So I think it's the A3 or the A4. I can never remember which one they finally did away with the fixed carry handles on. But in a clone like this, we have a decent quality rifle. You've got a 28. You have a 20-inch barrel on here, so you can get all of the velocity out of this guy. You do have the fixed stock. You don't have all the bells and whistles. You basically have iron sights, potentially a sling, your magazine. You're good to go. So with this is something again where it's a simpler rifle. It is ready to shoot out of the box in this configuration, but it's missing a lot of the modern amenities that many of us have kind of come to know and love. So you're not going to have any lights on here. You're not going to have any red dots. You're not going to have any scopes, anything like that. That's going to come later down the road. But you do have a higher end rifle that fits within that budget, sitting around the $800-ish mark. You could also go with something like more of the M4 size. Now this one's a little bit more outfitted. This is the Minuteman Scout rifle that I've done a video on. Again, that's going to be on the top somewhere if you want to check that out. But this here is just representative of kind of a simpler build kit. This one would be, again, a little bit higher rifle. I'm thinking like Stag Arms or a few of the other companies that make more M4 clones. You could potentially go with more of a flat top like the AR pistol we were showing earlier, just some higher quality stuff sitting again like from Ruger, Smith & Wesson, some of the other stuff there around that $800 mark. I think you can even get into like the Springfield Saint series for around that price point. But you're getting a very basic entry-level AR with that, of a little bit higher quality, and you're not getting any bells and whistles. You're not getting anything cool with it. You are just getting a simple gun. Now, If that's okay with you and you're willing to outfit it later down the road, that's totally fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. And sometimes I think that might be a better way to go. And the reason I think about that is I live in Idaho now. I used to live in Washington. And living in Washington, they had an assault weapons ban go through a few years back. And it was basically a mad dash for just about everybody to go get all of their dream rifles they could find before the ban went through, because it was something to where you couldn't get anything moving forward, but you could be grandfathered in with what you had. So this question came out with a lot of people. Do I get the rifle that I've always wanted and spend the extra money to get just the rifle? Because I can always buy scopes, I can always buy red dots, I can always buy parts and stuff like that later. Or do I get sacrifice a little bit on the rifle and get fully outfitted and I'm ready to go out the door? And again, that's a personal decision with that as far as where you fall in that line. So I know some people, they want to be ready for doomsday the minute they leave a gun shop. More power to you. Some of you guys are willing to make an investment and build upon it later. No wrong way about it. It's just personal preference. Again, another thing that we can do with having a $1,500 budget is we can look outside to other calibers. Now, I don't have an AK-47. I'm not an AK guy necessarily. Nothing against them. I just don't happen to own one. I've owned them in the past. That also fits into this category in that price range. You could get a decent AK, an entry-level AK. Some of the Palmetto ones, I think you can especially find them on sale for around that ballpark price of that $800 to $1,000. That doesn't leave you a lot of room left over, however, for the rest of your stuff. So the other thing you can do, for example, I like 308. Now this here, this is a PTR 91. Now this is definitely outside of our budget. When I bought this, it was during the spicy cough times. And this was around $1,600, $1,700, something like that. So that's like our entire budget in one gun. We're not even talking sights, anything like that. But SetMe, through Century Arms, will make C308s. And it's basically a clone of this rifle. The biggest thing is this has a magazine release right here, which is a paddle that you push on like an AK, right? Kind of a paddle mag release, as well as a button release. But you'll notice that the button release, it's kind of hard to see on the camera. It's right here where my finger is. For me to reach it, I have big hands. I have to break my grip and come across and grab it, or do some funky stuff with my offhand to grab that magazine. So the set means generally do not come with this paddle release, and you do have to add it later. But they can occasionally be found for the $1,000 mark. Not all the time, but potentially. So that's just another option of another rifle that you can go to. And again, for trying to figure out where your priorities are. So going back to kind of where we were with this, saying that $800 to $1,000 for a nicer rifle, but nothing on it. Then we're going to go back, get the shotgun out of the way. Again, I'm going to go around the $300 to $400 mark with this. To where let's say if we went with the $800 rifle, we could go with a $400 shotgun, and that would leave us $300 for a pistol because we're prioritizing the long arms here. Again, with that, I'm going to want a decent carry gun, but I'm probably going to have to go pretty simple on that. So I'm probably going to go with a basic double stack 9mm pistol, looking at something like a Glock 19, probably a used one, maybe the Gen 317 we had from the last video, Smith & Wesson, the M&Ps, some of the earlier models, entry-level CZs, things like this. I'm going to look at a $400 rifle. I'm going to $400 pistol. I'm going to try to get the best $400 pistol I can for that price. And again, nothing on it. The third category I wanted to put in here because I had some people reach out to me after the first video and as to why I didn't include certain things. So I'm going to preference this with saying I don't think it's the most realistic category, I think is the word for it. But if this is the way your heart is set, if this is the way you want to go, I see the merit behind it. And that is going to be the military surplus route. So like we said in the $600 video, when it comes to having such a tight budget and the increasing price of military surplus rifles, it is almost impossible to get a good rifle in that $600 budget. So with that, we are going to drift now to a military surplus-ish rifle series. And we're a rifle category, and we're going to necessarily not call this military surplus as much as more of just like the non-semi-auto rifle realm. Let's say for whatever reason, if you are in the state of Washington currently, you cannot purchase semi-automatic rifles. So if you are coming of age and you're trying to get a good setup, you can't get a semi-automatic rifle. It's not a thing in Washington state anymore. So maybe if you're in Canada or in a few other states or in a few other countries where gun ownership is allowed, but you are limited in what you can have, this might be a potential option for you. Obviously, change the pricings to your own currency as need be, but consider these as an idea. So with that, for the military surplus, this is going to be more of a placeholder, but I happen to have here number 4 Mark II Lee Enfield. So on the market now, depending on varying condition, you can find these between $400 to $700, and that's going to be about the price of most of the military surplus rifles. And the other category that we're going to throw in here of just non-semi-automatic rifles, whether it be kind of an entry-level bolt action, some form of hunting rifle, whether it be a bolt action combat rifle like this, or whether that be a lever action like a 30-30 or even a 357, a 44 Magnum, something like that. You can start to find those from Rossi and from some of the cheaper brands for those. So maybe occasionally even some Marlins for around the $400 to $700 mark. I know the price has gone up on a lot of those lately, and some of them you can get super Gucci with some of those, but we're going to say around $400 to $700 for that. So for this video, we're going to call it 6. We're going to say try to spend around $600, but we'll leave some leeway up to 7 for that. So with this, the Enfield rifle is a good choice for this. You can use it for hunting. You could use it for defense if need be. Here's where the reality of the situation comes in, though. Whether it be this, whether it be a lever gun, whether it be a hunting rifle, unless you are with the hunting rifle, you could someone's going to make the argument of, I could make it into a sniper rifle. Sure. Realistically, the thing is you're going to be outclassed by a lot of stuff that's out there. Now, if this is more of a home defense thing or more of just a stick to your own, survive on your own type of vibe, I get that. The reality of the situation, though, is if you're talking like about getting into any kind of gunfight for whatever reason, I would try to avoid that if this is what you were limited to. Because if I come at you with an AR-15 with 30 rounds and in my magazine and I've got 12 mags, you've got this guy fed by 2 5-round chargers for a total of 10 rounds in the magazine. You're carrying 10 reloads on you. You've got to reload every 10 rounds. You're shooting much slower. You're getting back on target. It's not as easy. Is it impossible? No, right? Have people done it? Absolutely. Like guys in Afghanistan were shooting other guys with these for quite a bit. It will get the job done, but it is not going to be the most successful tool for the job. And don't think that you're going to be some kind of, running this gun just as well as an AR-15 or an AK or anything like that, that you're going to try to, you're going to be some kind of anime ninja and just start cranking dudes down with this. You're not that guy, just don't want to rain on your parade, but that's just the reality of the situation is that as cool as these guns are, as awesome and rugged and reliable as these guns are, still sticking around, in some cases, like with Craig Jorgensen's stuff, over 120 years, it is really awesome to see these rifles be used, and it's cool to fantasize about that. But the other issue, too, also is ammo availability and price. You might be able to get this gun for cheaper than an AR-15 sometimes, and nowadays market, I wouldn't say that, but used to be. And the only problem, though, is the ammunition. Like even 303, as widely popular as it is, 303 was used by a third of the world at one point when the British owned it, and many places still use it. In fact, Canada just finally phased out their last one of these 4 years ago, I think, with some of their last units. People in India still use these. Like the 303 British cartridge isn't going anywhere anytime soon, but it is significantly more expensive than even 308. And so unless you're a reloader and you're doing large amounts of reloading, it doesn't make a bunch of economical sense to try to do a budget arsenal by getting a gun that takes expensive ammunition. It's like buying a cheap car that only takes premium gas, right? It doesn't quite make a whole lot of sense. If you're trying to save some money, you might want to go something more affordable. But I get that there are people out there that don't really have much of a choice, or that this might be the best option available to them. If you are in an area that has restrictions like that, this could be a potential option. And again, don't just think of just the military surplus route. We do, again, have, like I said, the hunting rifles that you can use and use those for their associated purpose. They also do act as a defensive rifle if need be. So you do have those in common calibers, like the Ruger Ranch rifles are great examples. They come in 5.56 as well as 308 and 300 Blackout and a few other cartridges that are out there. You could also go the route of the lever gun. The lever gun has widely available ammunition. It's been used as a defensive tool and was the gun that won the West. It was the original, I hate using this term, but assault rifle of its day. So there are options out there, but we're going to say for this purposes of this, as I'm rambling, that we're going to say around the $600 mark, maybe push it to 7. Again, this one's not having hard and fast numbers like the last one did. So we're going to kind of play fast and loose with this. So now when it comes to the pistol side of this, depending on where you're at, especially if you're in a more restricted state, depending on what those restrictions are or what nation you might be in, if you can have pistols, you're going to be looking at a couple different options. So if you can, what I think the best route would be is to get something like a more modern pistol, like a Glock, Smith & Wesson, Springfield, SIG, something like that, even if it's limited to 10-round magazines, if that's what you're at, so be it, and get into that route, because they do make more commonly available magazines if you ever move or have the opportunity to acquire things that work for this that are of a larger capacity. Fantastic, depending on what the laws are in your area. But if not, then you at least have a pistol that's still reliable, still modern, and everything like this, and you have the potential to fix the issues it has later down the road. Even something, again, going back to the Beretta, you might be able to find something like this in a 10-round magazine capacity. So that's an option as well. If you are limited to capacity, however, you could go the other route and say, well, why not just get a gun that was designed for having fewer rounds in the magazine? If I'm limited anyway, why buy a smaller magazine? It seems kind of a waste. I understand that mentality. So in that route, you could go with something like a 1911. So this one is from Springfield. These ones you can usually find their GI series, and some of the Turkish 1911s coming in the GI series for these guys, floating in and around the $400 to $500 mark. So with 1911s, the more money you pay, the nicer they generally are. But with a GI similar 1911 from a reputable brand, you can get some pretty decent reliability out of them. You just have to make sure that they are maintained. They are not a run dirty, run dry type of gun from my experience. They do like to be nice and wet. So they require maintenance. So as long as you're willing to do that, you can generally find one of these for around that ballpark. This could make a little bit on the heavier side, but would make a decent carry gun for that. You can get them in either 9mm in 10-round capacities generally, or in a 7 or 8 round magazine capacity of 45. So that if you are limited in capacity where you're at, this might not be a bad way to go anyway. Me personally, when it comes to carry guns, and I've said this before, I'm a big fan of 9mm, but I know there are some people out there that are already waiting for this moment to remind me in the comments that they carry a 1911. More power to you guys, just not my thing. If you do live in a free state, I do like the idea of having as much capacity as possible, but if you are limiting yourself to a 1911, then so be it. Some people, like my grandfather, for example, he's got more time on a 1911 than I do in life. So he's going to be more competent with that pistol than I'm going to be probably with any of mine. So that works for him. And again, it's going to be what works for you. I'm not going to necessarily tell you what to do with your life. It's your life. You choose how to live it. But this, again, is just another option for this. Again, coming in around, we're going to call it the $500 mark. So again, as you've kind of sensed a little bit of a theme here, we're kind of putting the shotgun on the back burner. Again, limiting it to about the $300 mark with the shotgun. The Remington 870 or similar type style shotguns, as we mentioned before. Like I said, this was going to be a little bit repetitive in certain areas, newer than others. I think that it's important to look at it and say, from different levels of money, everyone's a little bit different, right? For $600, especially for a lot of younger guys starting out, that can be a big ask to get into that. For some of us who maybe have saved up a little bit more money, or we just want to add stuff to the collection, the $1,500 mark, I think, is a really good middle ground across the board for people to get into this. Kind of where to look at with certain ideas and how to prioritize certain things. All right, so hopefully that gave you guys some stuff to think about as far as if you have $1,500-ish. Again, we kind of played a little fast and loose with the numbers on this one as opposed to the last video, just because it's really hard to narrow it down with some of the ways you can go about this. And there's so many more options that open up once you hit this range of dollar value that I kind of just wanted to give an example of philosophy of thinking behind it, of getting a decent rifle and either outfitting it with getting an okay rifle and outfitting it with everything you want, or getting a good rifle, a higher quality rifle, and saying, okay, I'm willing to lower, my budget for accessories and do that later as time allows. So it kind of depends on your philosophy. Do you want, when you buy a gun, do you want to buy it and outfit it all at once? Or do you like to get the best gun you can afford and then later add to it as money allows? So everyone is different. So there's not really a good or bad way to go about it. Again, I am kind of limited by the guns that I own, unfortunately, as visuals. So you bear with me with that. And I appreciate you guys hanging out. So hopefully you guys learned something with that. Hopefully you guys have different thoughts and comments. I really appreciated everyone who commented on the last video. You guys had some great options and great ideas for that $600 mark. I'm curious to see what your guys' take is on the $1,500 mark. What do they miss? Are there guns out there for the sweet price ranges that I haven't seen? I haven't bought a new gun in a little bit. I've been focusing on a few other things, so there may be some stuff out there that maybe I'm not seeing that's really cheap, good buy for a great deal. Could be. So let me know in the comments, guys. Thanks for hanging out this long. Check out www.midtierthoughts.com for some awesome merch to help support the channel, and we will see you on the next one. Peace.